Picture this. A devoted advocate for the visually impaired, thriving in her ideal career, suddenly stripped of it all due to a massive political deadlock. The story of Christine Grassman is a poignant reminder of how government turmoil can shatter lives. And here's where it gets controversial. Was it really necessary to turn temporary shutdowns into permanent firings? Stick around to see how one woman's journey through loss and resilience highlights a bigger debate about fairness in public service. The unprecedented funding battle wreaked havoc on countless Americans nationwide. Christine Grassman is among those who still haven't bounced back fully. Falls Church, Virginia. It began just before their regular dragon boat training session. Christine Grassman and her spouse, Gary, were gearing up for a significant competition. In mere days, the pair would head to Florida to compete in the national finals. Similar to the Grassmans, who are both visually impaired, dragon boating is a sport that's frequently misinterpreted. People often mix it up with traditional rowing, but they're distinct activities. Dragon boat participants wield paddles while seated facing the front. Rowers, on the other hand, use oars and sit with their backs to the direction of travel. This niche sport holds particular appeal for individuals with disabilities, folks like Christine and Gary, who affectionately dubbed themselves paradragons. They caught the dragon boat bug shortly after the COVID-19 pandemic subsided. Now, about 4 years in, Christine, at 56 years old, leads their squad as president of the Out of Sight Dragons. On the morning of October 11th, as Christine and Gary prepared for one of their final training runs ahead of the Nationals, her phone buzzed with a text message. Her boss at the U.S. Department of Education passed along word that their team had been hit with reduction in force alerts. In bureaucratic lingo, that translates to layoffs. The message urged Christine to check her email immediately. She followed through and couldn't hold back a string of colorful exclamations. Her final workday was slated for December 9th. A federal employee reveals how the visually impaired were overlooked amid the shutdown. Christine Grassman's world was flipped upside down by America's longest government shutdown. USA Today. Christine was devastated, and she wasn't the only one. Under President Donald Trump's administration, over 4,000 federal workers received pink slips that weekend, merely 10 days into what ballooned into the most extended government shutdown in U.S. history. Previously, such crises resulted in temporary furloughs, which, though damaging, allowed workers to return and receive back pay once resolved. That's how things played out during Trump's initial term, with a 35-day closure that broke records back then. But in his second term, opting for outright dismissals during yet another record-setting shutdown became a hallmark of this funding fiasco. The chaos that individuals like Christine weathered illustrates the profound damage federal paralysis can inflict on everyday Americans, including public servants. This turbulence has disproportionately hit those with disabilities, who tend to be employed at higher percentages in government jobs compared to private sector roles. Federal regulations have long mandated that agencies set and pursue specific goals for hiring people with disabilities. Claire Stanley, who heads advocacy and government relations for the American Council of the Blind, shared that Christine wasn't unique among visually impaired or low-vision federal staff. Numerous others faced initial layoffs, and even those retained went unpaid for weeks. "We were all sort of holding our breath," she recounted. Christine spoke with USA Today in her role as a personal advocate for the blind community. She's the head of the Fairfax chapter of the National Federation of the Blind of Virginia, and as a union member with AFGE Local 252, representing education department staff. She emphasized that her opinions don't reflect the agency's stance. From dream career to distressing ordeal. On October 29th, about 4 weeks into the government shutdown, Christine rested her hands on her dining table in her apartment. Pixie, her Norwegian forest cat with sandy fur that matched the dark maroon couch, relaxed nearby. For various reasons, she'd increased her anxiety medication. Concerns about supporting her elderly parents usually lingered in the background, but since her firing, they'd surged to the forefront. Her mom battles Alzheimer's disease, while her dad, a former firefighter, deals with chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. They reside in Long Island, New York, her childhood home. Nightmares disrupted her sleep, and stomach issues became a regular nuisance. Yet, amid the turmoil, the prior day brought a glimmer of optimism. On October 28, a California federal judge issued a temporary halt to her dismissal, along with thousands of others. However, with most agencies still mostly shuttered, she couldn't resume work immediately. The ruling provided only partial reassurance. It barely alleviated her anxieties about the long-term viability of the federal initiative she'd been enforcing since 2019. Despite being under the Education Department's umbrella, this program isn't focused on schooling at all. The Randolph-Shepard program, as it's called, primarily aims to create employment opportunities for blind business owners. By law, visually impaired entrepreneurs receive priority in bidding for contracts to run food services in government buildings. In the 2023 fiscal year, the initiative enabled nearly 1,500 vendors to earn around $750 million, based on official figures. As a program specialist, Christine's role involved resolving disputes and ensuring blind entrepreneurs secured their rightful advantages. Her husband once benefited from the program himself. She landed her dream job, noted Rachel Gittleman, president of the Education Department's union. Everything shifted mid-October when program overseers at the federal level were let go. When questioned on NBC's Meet the Press about the wave of simultaneous layoffs, House Speaker Mike Johnson, Republican Louisiana, expressed regret. "It's an unfortunate predicament that the president didn't desire," he stated, as the White House weighed workforce cuts. On November 6, the Education Department issued a statement claiming that since firings like Christine's were judicially blocked, operations wouldn't suffer. The tipping point. Over a week and a half post-injunction, Christine's job security remained precarious. In the U.S. Capitol, the atmosphere hinted at an impending agreement. Across the nation, the month's gridlock unveiled its toll on ordinary citizens in tangible ways. Numerous flights saw cancellations or delays. Preschool initiatives for many kids shut down. Millions relying on federal assistance strained to buy groceries. Senate Democrats, who withheld votes to end the shutdown over healthcare expenses, hit their limit. On November 9, they brokered a pact with congressional Republicans and the White House to restore functionality. The deal sparked internal party conflict. Some Democrats criticized their peers for yielding without guarantees to curb impending hikes in health insurance costs for millions. Nevertheless, it incorporated a crucial element for folks like Christine. All shutdown-induced layoffs would be undone, and the White House couldn't enact further firings until at least January 30, 2026. The following evening, the Senate forwarded a government reopening bill to the House. Tim Kaine, a Democratic senator and 2016 vice presidential candidate representing Virginia's federal workers, including Christine, broke ranks to support the GOP. "We safeguarded them," he shared with USA Today after voting. "They all have families and dependents, and it feels incredibly rewarding." Senator John Fetterman, who also departed from his party to end the shutdown, mirrored those views. "Restoring jobs for individuals like Christine was the ethical choice," said the Pennsylvania Democrat, who lives with an auditory processing disorder. "This had to conclude," he added, relieved yet far from ecstatic. By Wednesday, November 12, the shutdown officially concluded. Christine returned to her desk that very day. Senator Ron Johnson, Republican Wisconsin, a staunch ally of federal employees during the crisis, informed USA Today he wasn't privy to Christine's details but anticipated folks in her position would rejoice at job reinstatement. "I'm relieved," she responded to Johnson's outlook, "but I'm not overjoyed. The outlook for her workplace is murky." Education Secretary Linda McMahon aims to dismantle as much of her department as permissible, and has recently advanced that by transferring core functions, like those for low-income and rural education, to 4 other agencies. While Christine's unit escaped this reshuffling, rumors swirl that similar changes loom. Department officials note they're evaluating the Special Education Office's fate, where her team operates. Agency representatives declined repeated USA Today inquiries post-shutdown about the reverse dismissals. Yet, legal filings show full adherence to a judge's reinstatement directive for employees like Christine. Dragon boating season has wrapped up. Once their finances stabilize after the shutdown, the Grassmans plan a getaway to a warmer spot to resume paddling.